Cities have been leveled by earthquakes, tsunamis, bombs, and plagues. But some of the most dramatic collapses have come from the methodical destruction of armies. Hi everyone. When Cities Fell is a series about catastrophic urban disasters, many of which are man-made. In this episode, we'll be looking at when armies came for cities with one goal in mind: to raze them to the ground. From Genghis Khan's invasion of Persia to the conquistadors' assault on Tenochtitlan, here are 5 times when cities fell due to armies gone wild. The year was 1258, and the place was Baghdad. For over 750 years, it had been the capital of one empire or another. It was the seat of caliphs, Abbasid caliphs, who were the successors of the Prophet Muhammad, and the city had been a center of trade and culture in the Islamic world. In fact, during its golden age, the city boasted a population of 1 million people. Now, that was huge for the time period, and it was also considered the largest city in the entire world. It was an urban behemoth, and if you wanted to destroy the Abbasid Caliphate, you would need to destroy its beating heart, its brain, its soul, Baghdad. Hulagu Khan was a Mongol prince and grandson of Genghis Khan. He was actually half Muslim, but you don't need religion to hate your enemy. His army was mostly made up of Muslims. In fact, it was composed of different ethnicities and religions. It didn't matter. They were all united under the banner of the Mongol Empire and its goal of bringing law and order to the Middle East through military conquest. Baghdad was the last major obstacle in his path. The Mongols had already taken most of the Abbasid Caliphate, and the soon-to-be Caliph al-Mustasim was preparing to flee the city. Hulagu wasn't interested in letting him get away. He wanted to make an example of Baghdad. The siege began in February 1258 and lasted 2 months. Unlike the Mongols' previous enemies, the Abbasids had a strong defensive position around their capital, a double wall. But the Mongols were prepared with powerful catapults that launched stones weighing up to 132 pounds and gunpowder weapons that hurled grenades. They also used psychological warfare. First, they unleashed hellish war cries to frighten the defenders. Then they sent them letters saying they would be executed along with their families unless they surrendered. But the Abbasids refused to budge. So the Mongols brought in 40 elephants, which may sound like overkill. But elephants are excellent siege engines. They trampled the defenders, pulled down walls, and destroyed towers. Finally, the Abbasid troops ran out of food and water. The Mongol horde was able to breach the walls, and the city was doomed. Hulagu entered the city on February 1259. According to his chronicler, the Mongols showed great restraint. Some say he gave the citizens 3 days to surrender, but that isn't mentioned in any other sources. What we do know is that he offered them another chance after his first assault failed. But when the inhabitants opened the gate to negotiate, the Mongols poured in, killed the caliph, and massacred thousands. The rest of the city was looted and burned. And within a few days, Baghdad was a smoldering ruin. Estimates say 800,000 people were killed. It was an apocalyptic scene, the likes of which the world hadn't seen since the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. To add insult to injury, Hulagu ordered the body of the last caliph boiled in oil and then threw his bits into the Tigris River, scattering them to the winds. The Mongol horde moved on, conquering what is now Iran and Syria. Their empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. The once mighty Abbasid Caliphate was no more. And neither was Baghdad. What did the ancient Persians ever do to the Mongols? You would think they were related because the Persians sure acted like they were. Back in the 6th century BC, Cyrus the Great founded the Achaemenid Empire, which took in much of Greater Persia. It became the largest empire the world had ever known. Under Darius the Great, it controlled everything from Central Asia to the Middle East to North Africa and parts of Eastern Europe. But its glory was destined to end by the hands of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. By the 13th century, a new power arose in Persia, the Mongol Empire. As the Persians embraced Islam, the Arab rulers of Persia, the Seljuks, became close allies of the Mongols. And so, when the Mongol leader Genghis Khan decided to turn on the Persians, it was a surprise. Sure, the Seljuks had done the Mongols wrong in the past, refusing to convert to Tengriism and plotting against the empire. But many Mongols knew that the Persian cities were full of treasure. So Genghis assembled his army, numbering between 70,000 and 200,000 men, and headed toward Persia. The soldiers rode on horseback, which allowed them to travel across the arid landscape and fire their bows at the enemy. They were also masters of psychological warfare. Genghis sent threatening letters to the cities, giving them a chance to surrender before he arrived and save them from total destruction. Sometimes he even offered the city leaders positions in his empire. Many accepted, but not Knee-Shaper. The city's governor wouldn't bend the knee to the Mongols. So Genghis laid siege to the city in 1220. There were massive stone walls and several smaller fortresses inside. But Genghis was prepared. He built large towers near the walls and used catapults to bring them down. But the governor kept escaping to the citadels. It wasn't until 40 days later that the city finally fell. Genghis let the women, children, and old men go. Everyone else got the short end of the stick. He ordered them to be put to death, either by being sewn up in sacks or burned alive. Women and children were thrown into the river, and the heads of the men were cut off and hung from the walls. After the battle, the Mongols sacked the city. Houses were burned, stores were emptied, and every piece of equipment was destroyed, so it couldn't be used against them. Even though Nishabur's population had only been around 20,000, estimates say that 1.7 million people died, making it the deadliest Mongol attack. The rest of the cities in Persia didn't fare any better. The Mongols went on to conquer Samara, burning to the ground. All told, the Mongols conquered all of Greater Persia and even parts of Anatolia, except for the Kingdom of Georgia, which managed to repel their attacks. In 1520, Hernán Cortés and his soldiers reached the coast of Mexico. They were Spanish conquistadors with orders from the King of Spain to find gold, jewels, and, above all, convert the natives to Christianity. Cortés and his men marched inland, where they encountered the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. It was a magnificent city, located on an island in Lake Texcoco. Its inhabitants spoke Nahuatl, and their emperor was Moctezuma II. Cortés claimed he was bringing them the new religion and demanded they give him gold. Moctezuma refused, but he welcomed the Spaniards into the city. While there, Cortés noticed that the Aztecs had smallpox, which was rampant back in Europe, and thought it could help weaken them. He unleashed it upon them and then waited for the Spaniards' fleet to arrive. He needed ships. The Aztecs fought back, but the horses, the Spaniards, had proved too much for them. Soon, the Spanish troops were able to enter the city and pillage it. They stole gold and jewels, murdered nobles and priests, and defiled the temples, spitting on idols and breaking ceremonial objects. Cortés appointed a puppet ruler, and Moctezuma disappeared. Historians believe he was killed by his own people, but it's disputed. The Spaniards kept coming back to Tenochtitlan for more plunder. In 1527, they came for good. This time, Cortés had artillery. The cannon fire shook the foundations of the city, and the Aztecs couldn't stop it. Cortés attacked again, demanding the city's treasures and submission to the King of Spain. The Aztecs fought back, but their numbers were decimated by smallpox, and they were defeated by the Spaniards' superior weapons. On August 13, 1521, the Spanish troops entered Tenochtitlan, killed its people, burned its buildings, and destroyed its works of art. They razed the city to the ground. By the 15th century, the Inca Empire was the largest in the Americas. It stretched along the Andes Mountains from Colombia to Chile. At its center was the capital city of Cusco. It was home to around 300,000 people, and its main temple was Sacsayhuaman, where the sun god Inti was worshipped. But the Spanish had come to Peru with one purpose: to destroy the Inca and take all their gold. In 1532, Francisco Pizarro and his men kidnapped the Inca Emperor Atahualpa, held him for ransom, and then killed him. The Inca were leaderless and Cusco was ripe for the taking. The Spanish entered the city on November 1535. They stormed the royal palace, killed its defenders, and stole everything they could carry. They ransacked the markets, destroyed the homes, and desecrated the temples. The next day, Pizarro entered the main square and read a proclamation from Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, claiming Cusco for Spain. He then ordered the city to be burned. The locals tried to flee, but the Spanish blocked their way and slaughtered them. When they tired of that, they unleashed their dogs and whips on them. Over 70,000 Inca were killed. Survivors fled into the mountains, but they were hunted down and killed. Those who didn't die immediately were taken back to Cusco and sold into slavery. The Inca Empire was over. Cusco never recovered. The Spanish built a new city on top of the ruins. For more ways cities fall, stay tuned for more episodes of When Cities Fall. See you next time.